Welcome to the Backseat Thriver podcast. I'm Christina Johnston.
And I'm Bridget Kostas.
And we really think you guys should listen because we think we're pretty funny.
We are pretty funny.
Yeah.
We're unfiltered. It's real. It's sometimes what you need to hear.
Sometimes what you don't.
But tune in.
Tune in. That was good.
That works.
Welcome to the Backseat Thriver podcast.
Let's go. Good morning.
We're back.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Bridget, today's pretty emo of a day.
Emo?
And I'm only looking at your direction. You had a pretty big week.
I did.
Yeah.
It was why we weren't live last week.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to cry because there's no tissue around here today. Okay.
I don't have enough support to give you.
You do. Emotional support. You're like my emotional support dog. Friend. Emotional support friend.
Okay.
I meant friend,
I
not
accept
dog.
that, but I'm not interested in tears today, so let's get to this.
So the baby, my 18-year-old, moved him up to college. I know. Got him moved into his dorm. He's an NAU lumberjack. Let's go.
Boy.
Yeah. So last week was a big week of transition, and stayed up in Flagstaff for a week. Got an Airbnb, and it was awesome because I couldn't leave right away once he moved in. I was like, okay, I just need to make sure.
I just want to be here.
I just want to be here, like, in case you need anything, and in case, like, in case you need anything, like, texting him every day, like, so do you need anything?
Do you need some mac and cheese?
So do you have everything? Like, did you bring all your toiletries? How'd you sleep? How was your pillow? How was your bed? He was like, Mom, I was good. So, he spent his first 3 nights by himself, and I was like, oh God, this is so weird.
Meanwhile, you're crying yourself to sleep.
Meanwhile, me and the dog. So took the dog up with me, and so we hung out in Flagstaff for a week, and the dog and I just hung out, her and I, for like 4 days. I'm like, this is so weird. I'm not home. I'm not in my own 4 walls.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so now transitioning to, the empty.
You are officially an empty nester.
I'm officially a bird launcher. I'm changing my frame of mind here. I'm changing it because an empty nester, that just sounds sad. And when I think of just being empty, like, oh my God, it's just me and my husband, and these rooms are empty, and like everything's clean, and there's no hair on the bathroom counter, and no toothpaste, and towels hanging everywhere. It's like, as much as you miss all of that, right? I kind of walk by these empty rooms, and I see all of this cleanliness in there. But now I'm at this frame of mind of I'm a bird launcher, because that makes me feel much more secure in personally. It's a state of mind that I did my job. I got my kiddo to the door. We got them to, he's done everything that he's needed to do to be successful in this next path, and now he's been launched. And here we are.
Okay, real question. How much did you cry on the drive back to home?
So much. Okay. So for like the first 5 or 10 minutes coming out of Flagstaff, like my son and I, we have like this banter, and he's so funny and he's so witty, and he was like, "Don't you cry." Don't you cry, you little baby. Like we have this banter of like it gets you out of like your slump, right? It's our humor. And he was like, "You better toughen up. Quit that crying, you little baby." And it just makes you laugh, and just having that. So like 10 minutes out of Flagstaff, he texted me and he was like, "You better stop that crying, you big baby." And I was like, so that just made the heart feel so good.
Well, Bridget, you are really experiencing a grief right now. And I'd like to say that we planned today's episode perfectly around that, because we are going to be talking about all kinds of grief. And I think, we all know, like, there's not one way that you grieve, and there's not one thing that you grieve. And so should we just jump in?
Let's jump in.
Okay.
Let's do it.
So, guys, we have kind of a celeb on our hands today.
We do.
Kind of a big deal, kind of a really big deal. Like, we're talking hundreds of thousands of people watching this guy on social media. So, we are so stinking lucky to have Dr. Saren Morong with us today. Dr. Morong is a best-selling author. He is a board-certified family physician. He is a former Washington State University football player. And I know those things really don't align. You know, the brains and the brawn. We got both today, right? He's a dad, a stepdad, a husband, and a widower, and kind of a unicorn. So I think that's probably the most diverse intro we've had for someone. So Dr. Morong, thank you so much for being on our little podcast today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's funny that you said unicorn because I do have a unicorn shirt. I could have worn that.
Darn it.
Okay. Yeah. I have a feeling, I don't want to jump the gun here, but I have a feeling we're going to be begging you to come back on unless you really tank, and then we won't.
Well, I guess we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
He's going to be begging us.
Yeah.
Come on, Sarah. Come on. It was so much fun.
And then you can wear the unicorn shirt next time.
Sure.
And Bridget,
Deal.
I'm sure we'll have, you just got very excited. I saw you.
I did get very excited.
Yeah.
It wasn't until probably the last 10 years unicorns became cool again.
Cooler, yeah.
And were in adult clothing. And I think I have every item.
Yeah, I bet you do.
I'm pretty sure The Rock wore something once too with a unicorn. That sort of
Probably.
starts to make it cooler,
It does make it cooler.
I wear anything he
I
wears.
friggin' love unicorns.
I know.
It's just magical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we gave just the cliff notes on you. So give us I think you're fascinating.
Who are you?
Who are you?
Who are you,
No.
Dr. Serendipity?
I don't know. I'm still trying to figure it out. Right?
I love it. I love it.
All those things you mentioned. I'm from state of Washington. Grew up in Pullman, Washington, small college town. That's where Washington State University is at. Grew up there. Went to school there. It's kind of one of those places where some people are just can't wait to get out because it's small and they got to go explore. And other people are like, I'll just go to school here. So when I went to Washington State, freshman year, it's kind of like just going to the 13th grade. My mom's office was on campus. I'd stop by in there. My grandpa used to work on the campus and stuff,
How cool.
Yeah, so it was very, super easy transition for me. And then as a kid, I grew up, playing sports and watching Cougar football. That's the NFL for a little kid in a college town. And, watching those guys, idolizing them, and then all of a sudden one day it's just hey, do you want to come play for us? It's oh my God, yeah, I do, So that was a dream come true getting to play there.
That's a big deal.
That is a big deal.
It was a lot of fun. I got offered a scholarship before my senior year of high school even.
Oh, you were that good.
I think they wanted me
Yes.
as a kid. I don't know. I think it's some press
Versus
stuff.
a walk. I walked on and sat the bench.
Yeah. No, so it was a lot of fun. It was an absolute dream come true. And that year, that was a freshman, that's when the Cougs went to the Rose Bowl for the first time in 67 years. And just to be a part of that. So now all of a sudden I'm an 18-year-old kid down in LA. We stayed in not Beverly Hills, but the Santa Monica. We stayed in Santa Monica, on the beach, 5-star hotel. We're seeing celebrities walk by and stuff. It was just oh my God,
So
you
cool.
know?
That's amazing.
Yeah. So that was a lot of fun.
Wow.
But so did that great time at Washington State. That's family. People outside of the football part are family, and then definitely my teammates and stuff. I just was back there 2 weeks ago golfing with guys, right?
Oh, that's so cool.
And so that was just a huge part of my life. And before I had gone to college, I had taken an anatomy class in high school. And I just thought the anatomy was so cool. Up to that point in my life, I was thinking I wanted to be some sort of engineer. I liked sort of the building of things, stuff like that. And then I took this anatomy class and I loved it. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll be a doctor. That's engineering in the human body or whatever. So that was my first initial spark into that. And I was we'll just see what happens. And obviously stuck with it. So once I was done playing, sadly, the NFL was not my career or my
Was
path.
there a minute where you hoped it would be?
Definitely. Of course I did. But, you guys asked me about injuries earlier and stuff. I had a lot of injuries. So not any quote unquote official concussions.
But the unofficial, your answer was
What did I say?
something like
A few.
A few, correct.
Undetermined.
I can't remember, right? No, when I was in resident, there was a neurologist who was giving a presentation, and everybody always asked me, hey, did you ever get any concussions, just like you guys did? And I was I don't know. I got my bell rung a few times, that kind of thing. Well, now we know those are concussions, you know? So the neurologist was talking in front of all these people, like, I don't know, 30, 40 people in this little lecture hall. And he gave those terms. He goes, if anybody ever says they got their bell rung or they had to shake the cobwebs off, they've had a concussion. I kid you not, like the entire room turned and looked at me. They're like,
You.
now we know why you were weird sometimes.
This
you know?
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So if he just stops and stares.
Yeah, stops and
Well,
stares.
no.
That's right. Yeah, but you know, not with just the concussion stuff. But I've always had a bad back. In fact, actually, I had surgery just 2 years ago on my back here, and so that started to become a big problem. Then I missed like half of my junior season. I missed a bunch of games my senior season. I honestly got to a point where I was just like, I love this, but like I am tired of being in the training room. Like I'm tired of this. I'm tired of being like the guy who's injured, you know. So near the end of my career, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit salty. I was kind of just like, ugh, you know, like maybe it's just time to get ready for the next phase. And literally like started studying for the MCAT and stuff. Like after I graduated, like worked at the university, I was an anatomy TA in that
get
same
out.
lab that from when I was exposed
From
to
the
in high
one
school.
that you took.
Love that.
Yes.
How cool.
Yeah. So then I was a teacher. In fact, actually, I was a teaching assistant during the fall semester of my senior year of football. So it's like, I remember one day, like, we had a big game on Saturday or whatever. And then, like, on Monday, I'm back in lab and I'm teaching. And somebody was like looking at me. They're like, didn't I see you on the field on Saturday? Was that your name?
Did you have some pads on?
Yeah. I'm like, if you saw Morong, yes, that was me. There's nobody else in
Yeah.
town with that name. So, yeah.
I mean, that has to be, you know, I know this is not the first time you've heard this, but it's like football player turned doctor. Say what?
Yeah. There's definitely not.
Especially
a
having
lot.
your bell rung a few times.
Right.
And you can still study the MCAT.
Yeah. I guarantee you nobody you were golfing with when you went back there is a doctor.
No.
Yeah.
Anybody else on your team go the medical?
Like at least in my era, no, not
Yeah.
that I'm aware
That's-
of. Like
that's
I know,
pretty awesome.
Actually, I know we have a punter. I think he's still up in Phoenix. I want to say he's a surgical physician assistant. I think that was the closest like teammate I knew that went into like something medical like that. But
And so what Christina is not saying is that jocks are dumb.
But yeah.
but what we're saying is most don't go into the medical program.
no,
Right,
most
right.
most don't, you know. And lots of times I mean, you're so busy, you kind of pick the major that's going to be the easiest one to
Yes.
get, you know. And I don't know, with my boys now who are playing football, like my biggest thing when I'm talking to them about stuff is like absolutely 100%. If you want to play in the NFL, like I've got your back, I'll help. Let's do whatever we can so you to meet your goal. And I look at it really realistically. I'm like, let's say you make it to the NFL. Average career in the NFL is like 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
So if you make it a
Unless
3 to
you're
4
a
year career, you're right, but you got to be a really stellar one too, right?
Yeah.
But 3 to 4 years, like, okay, that'd be amazing if you made that average. So that means you are done playing at like 25, 26 then. So now what?
Then what?
Then what? You know, and so that's my biggest thing is like, while you're in school, like I want you to prepare for the after NFL career, you know, and so that way you just got some direction, something that you're going to do, you know.
That's so important.
That's great advice.
And so, speaking of concussion, speaking of athlete, that is something that we've told our kids all throughout their athletic careers. Your brains will take you further than your body.
Right.
So, you know, and that was something that our oldest had experienced. He got 3 concussions his senior year playing soccer.
Yeah.
And after his 3rd concussion, his doctor was like, "You need to hang up your cleats.
Yeah, you need to do something else.
You need to do something else. You cannot get back on the field
Right.
because this is causing vision. This is causing headaches. This is causing migraines. This is an issue, and you need to heal."
Yeah,
and that was
absolutely.
going right into college.
Right.
So I was like, "Oh man,
Yeah, that's super tough
it was
to hear.
it was a tough one.
Yeah.
It was, but
and there's probably gonna be more and more of that these days because of how much we're monitoring it. Like my stepson, he had a back concussion last year, and he had to do all the impact testing to get back to baseline. It took him a while to like actually get back, you know. So now we're just sort of like, okay, that was one, like your first year, like, you know,
Right. Is your wife like, okay,
she's freaking out.
This is enough. I can't take 4 of these.
She's freaking out, you know, but I guess in her defense, it's like she didn't grow up with anybody playing football. It's just her and her sister. Football wasn't part of the household, you know, and my mom freaked out too when I was playing football, like in high school. But like, so for me, I'm like, it took a big hit. All right.
it's the guys. The guys are gladiators.
Yeah.
Like we're just play
but it's
piano.
also something you just get used to. Like you see the big hit on the field, and it looks awful. A lot of them don't hurt that bad, depending on where you're getting hit or whatever. And so it might look horrible, but you're kind of like, and okay. And if you don't have that experience having been hit like that, then you're like, oh my God, how is he going to get up? You
just hear it there.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, thank you.
So I'm assuming you're the reason that your two step boys are like, let's do this football thing.
Oh, no, not necessarily. No,
Okay.
it is just one stepson, but no, he's loved football forever.
Okay.
Like he eats and breathes.
So you can't take credit for that.
I can't take credit for his interest in it whatsoever.
All right.
No. Yeah.
Well, I tried.
Well, it is funny because my 13-year-old, so I've got two 15-year-old son and stepson, and then my 13-year-old, he's like, yeah, I want to play this tackle football this year. I was like, okay, cool. And as he said it, I was kind of like, I'm not quite sure he really wants to do it, and I pulled him aside. I'm like, you don't have to. Like, just because I played, your brothers were playing. That's what I feel like his drive is coming from,
Yeah.
I'm like, you don't have to do this. He's like, Dad, I want to. I'm like, okay.
Like, is there like a rite of passage? Like, all right, now your brothers are going to tackle you, and if you cry, you can't play football. Like,
We probably should do that.
what-
It's hilarious though. It's like, as much as my wife is freaked out about what happened like on the tackle field, right? Then our 5-year-old playing flag football, they're allowed to put their hands up. They're not supposed to push, but some of the kids push, and he has no idea what's going on. And my wife is like, he's got to get tougher. And then she goes, we should have the older boys rough him up a little bit.
Haze them.
I was like, are you kidding me? I was like, the next statement you're going to say is that you guys are being too rough with your
Yeah.
brother.
Yeah.
It totally is. Don't make him cry.
Yeah.
Why'd you guys bruise him?
Yeah.
Because
Come
you
on now.
told us to
Yeah.
push him.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's go paint us the picture, because you've got a very cool, pretty wild story. I mean, I remember the first time I met you about 8 years ago, and you had shared that. I was just like, wait, what? Like, and you're standing and you're talking and you're, sharing this story with your patients and all of that. So fill our listeners in, because, we got a lot of them. Tell us kind of your whole journey. Like you had a couple of kids.
Yeah.
How many years ago? Take us from then to now.
Well, I mean, going back a little bit to when I got done playing football, and then I was working at Washington State. That's when I met my first wife, and she had graduated. She was just still working, and just when we first met, it was crazy that we'd been there 5 years and never crossed paths or whatever. And it wasn't until after graduation that we did. Her name is Visa, and so we started dating. Then she came with me to Seattle when I started medical school there. And so was with me through all of that, medical school and residency. Right at the end of graduation, right before I started residency, is when we had our first kid, my first son, who's 15 now. And so I did my residency, family medicine, in Olympia, Washington. So I was there for the typical 3 years, and then was working there afterwards. So this is now March of 2014, and we were kind of at a point in our life where it was just a lot of excitement, because we've been going through all this hard work stuff where it's not much of a paycheck coming in as a resident, obviously not as a med student. And we were getting to this point of just life's about to get really exciting. I'm about to make money, and all this hard work is going to start paying off, And we had 2 boys at this point, and went to work, was seeing patients, phone buzzed in my pocket, and I don't take it out immediately. That's not appropriate to do when somebody's sitting there telling me about their depression or their anxiety, or, they have chest pain. It's I don't take my phone out for those reasons,
Hold on just a second.
Yeah, hold on. Hold that thought. Stop the heart attack. Or you came to me in crisis, but you're going to have to hold on,
Right. I got a news alert here, pal.
Yeah. And I remember feeling the phone buzzing, and I was like, okay. And was done with that patient, went back to my office, and I was like, oh, it was a voicemail from my wife. That's weird, because usually it would just be a text or something. And you've seen that video before. I can give you guys minute by minute of the whole thing. But I listened to the message, and in her message, she just said I'm not feeling good. I don't know what's going on. But in the end of her thing, she basically was just sort of concerned about what am I going to do with the kids kind of thing, And this was literally 20 minutes after she left the voicemail. So I was like, okay. So I called it, and I thinking to myself, all right, I'm probably gonna have to clear my schedule and just go home. She didn't answer the first call. And I was like, she's probably changing a diaper.
Right.
Waited a few minutes, called again. She didn't answer, and I was like, who knows? At this point, the almost 4-year-old, certainly knows how to use a phone already. I'd seen him like swipe and cancel calls. I was like, I didn't know
Quit
he could do-
interrupting me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm playing my game.
Playing bubbles.
Yeah. And so I was like, that's probably what's happening. And then after the third call, that's just like something was just like, there's like a yucky feeling. Like, what's going on? So I called the neighbor, and because he worked from home, and we went and checked on her. He called me back, and he's just basically like saying, like, she's awake, but we're calling 911. You need to come home. And just sprinting out of clinic at that point, like I think back to me rushing home, like how, in a sense, how dangerous it was because I was not clear-minded in that sense. And, rushing home and got home and like ambulance, a fire truck, all these paramedics at the house, and I walk in, she's sitting on the living room floor. She's all pale. She's awake. She's sitting up, but she's pale. And they pretty quickly were thinking along the lines of she might have like a blood clot or like an aneurysm or something like that, asking me some questions. They're like, well, we're going to get her loaded up. We're definitely got to take her like right now. I'm like, yeah, you guys do that. Like, we're going to be right behind you. They loaded her up. I'm just like, okay, hey, babe, I love you, and they were gone. And
Was she able to talk back to you?
No, she wasn't able to talk. And that was one of the things where it was like, this changes for me over time. Like, I was always just like, I don't know if she heard me, or like, I don't think she even heard me because she wasn't really with it, And when I post things like that, people are always like, oh, she's heard you. Like, the hearing is the last thing to go, like all these kinds of things. And that's something I've been able to accept over time, but I didn't at the beginning,
Yeah.
And, but at that point I was just like, I don't know, it was this mix between like dad, husband, and like doctor. I was like practical. I'm like, okay, well, I can't leave the kids, right? They're 2 and 4. I was like, you guys are coming with, I don't know what to do right now. And I was just like, let's pack a bag. I'm like, we're going to be at the hospital for a little bit. It's going to be fine, So I kind of took time because I was like, they're going to need to get her all situated when they get her in the ER. So we go to the hospital. It's a hospital that I like just ran from, like, is where I trained and everything, and I walk in and like immediately I see that the ambulance hadn't come, like they weren't there. It's like, what the, oh wait, we can say whatever, right?
Yeah.
What the fuck? Where are they? And then finally got right. And the reason that they took so long is because she coded on the way to the hospital. They had to stop and they intubated her and they started CPR. So like knowing that, like somebody from the field being brought in already needing CPR and intubated or whatever, it's like I already know that's not a good thing, And then like in the room, it was just an awkward situation because I felt like everybody in there like knew me because they all worked with me, and they're like, oh no, this is my wife. And it's like, nobody wants to say anything, but it's like, I'm not blind. I can see the numbers on the screen. I'm like, those are the numbers that were like, this is not going to turn out well, but nobody's talking. And it's just a terrible situation. So this was all in the morning. It went on all day long. She would code, they'd do CPR, she'd get stable. Couldn't get her into imaging to like rule out, is this a clot or this is a bleed? Because if it's a clot, let's give medication. But if it's a bleed and we give that medication, it's going to make it worse.
Right.
And we couldn't get her stable enough to find out what it was. And by the time we did, it was too late. And at this point, like we're in the ICU and I've got my kids with me and, word spread fast. There's like 30 people like hanging out like there with me, like waiting to see like what's going to happen, And then they finally called it at like, well, I don't need to say like what time. I know exactly what time they called it. And probably, there's so many horrible feelings from that day, but probably one of like the loneliest like I ever felt in my life was when we went home and I was just me and my 2 boys. And then the youngest one, he's 22 months at the time, and the other one's just about to be 4. And coming home to this empty house and then like getting into bed was just like, what the fuck just happened?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I can't even begin to explain of just like this vast just emptiness of like life at that time, And so that was, that's the big, obviously big moment in my life that drives lots of things and all the aftermath that came from that, So in the end, what it was she had bilateral PE, so blood clots in both lungs. In the end, this is a weird thing I remember because it was such like, where did this come from? Healthy 35-year-old, and we came to find out after the fact that like a lot of her family members had that, and this is my little education piece in there is like how important family history is.
Yep.
Had her doctor known her family history, then she should not have been on birth control pills. So in the end, the autopsy report was likely due to that, you know. And I was hoping, to tell you the truth, I was hoping that they were going to do the autopsy and find out that somehow without pain or symptoms that she had like metastatic cancer that was going to be like a bad thing. And then you could say, this was probably the better way.
Right.
You know what I mean? But that wasn't the case. So it's just like,
It wasn't preventable.
no, you know, and it's just like we were at this time period in our life too where we were debating on having a third kid, you know, and so like to think of that, the irony of that, of like the thing that we were using to prevent a life is what took hers. You know what I mean? But the family history played a big portion in that too, though. So,
Gosh, that is, and you know, sometimes I think it's easy to have that narrative like, oh, that idiot doctor missed this. Like, how could they not have known? And it's like, well, if the patient doesn't tell you, you know, if you don't know your own family history.
and there's a lot of people like that, you know, for people who like, I don't know, I guess I'd say like 30s, 40s, maybe 50s, thinking of their parents, like that generation. A lot of stuff was not talked about. Like, oh,
Silent.
you don't need to know about grandpa's health or this or that.
Yeah.
Well, no, actually we do, because it changes
Grandma was
things.
batshit crazy, but nobody wants to tell us why.
Yeah.
Was she batshit crazy because she had Alzheimer's diagnosed at 65 and
Right.
we're all at risk, or was she crazy? You know?
Yeah.
So
Exactly. Or why was she always sick? Did she have cancer?
Yeah.
Why, you know, oh, she was, you could go down every excuse that our
Yeah.
parents have given us
Oh,
over
totally,
the
yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And that their parents didn't tell them. Have no idea.
My mom said to me, I was asking her something about family history, and she was like, Chrissy, you are welcome for your great genes. And I just looked at her and I was like, are you serious? I was like, your dad died of a stroke. Your mom died of a stroke. My grandma died of cancer. My grandpa has cancer. Like, I'm like, you had cancer. Everyone has had cancer or something. And she goes, oh shit. And she was like, oh my God. And like ever since then, this was not that long ago, ever since then, she's like, well, apparently you have really crappy family history. I'm like, I know. I'm expecting to get cancer at some point.
Do some genetic testing.
yeah.
That's probably not a bad idea.
Yeah.
But
definitely.
back to your public service announcement of know your history,
yeah.
know your family history, know your own.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
changes what we do. I do it every single day. I had a guy just was it like Monday or maybe it was Friday, whatever. Just recently, who his cholesterol is a little bit high, and most of the time for like a 36-year-old wouldn't think too much of it.
Yeah.
But then with his family history, knowing who has had heart attacks and how early, completely changed the tests I ordered and how aggressive that we're going to be. So he's not one of those other statistics, you know. And then same thing with the cancers. You start screening things earlier based off of the family history, or maybe you do some extra tests and things you wouldn't normally do.
So you had mentioned PE, pulmonary embolism. Is that symptomatic?
So it definitely can be.
Because I'm sure you've probably gone down,
Gone
the
down
rabbit
Did I
hole.
miss something?
the absolute rabbit hole, you know. And you know, speaking of, you know, we're doing this podcast and like, you know, I got my social media stuff, like the amount of people that, trolls, you know, that attack you for stuff. And like some people, I think it's, you know, it's very clearly they're just trying to get a rise. They're like user whatever, blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And other people are real people. And I'm like, what the fuck is wrong with you that you think that you can like, you know, people like been like, why didn't you do this? I'm like, you're seriously asking me that question? This happened 11 years ago.
Yeah.
You know? And so just the amount of people. But I definitely was just like, what did we miss? And
you're a physician.
Yeah. Oh, people were just like,
so knowing,
you're terrible. How could you miss that? I'm like, I'm not a magician.
Yeah.
Like, you know, you got to look at things. Now, she did like, I want to say maybe a couple weeks before, talk about having some like chest wall pain, not like cardiac, but like chest wall. And she was a little bit sick at the time. And she goes, you know what? She goes, I had pleurisy. Pleurisy is like usually from like a viral infection where like the lining of the lungs just get inflamed and irritated.
Yeah.
And it can be kind of painful. She goes, this is just like when I had pleurisy in college. And I was like, oh, you know, what you probably just need to do is just take a few days of taking the leave and let's see how it is.
Yeah.
She took that and went away. So the question is like, did she have pleurisy or was that the presenting sign?
Yeah.
You know, but how many little things do we have?
You don't
Every-
run to the
ailment.
doctor.
Yeah.
Like I have like a little pain. Like let me no.
Yeah.
You
Like-
don't do
like-
did I
that.
hit?
Yeah,
Did I
if you
hit
sneeze,
myself?
yeah.
Did I sneeze?
Yeah,
did I
of course,
brush
back
my
in the day,
teeth?
people sneeze, we say bless you because they thought they were getting the plague.
Yeah.
That made sense back then
Yeah,
that time because then maybe that's what they'd have. But that's not what's happening now. So you don't think like I sneezed, oh my gosh, I need medication, I need to see the doctor. this thing went away with a leave, we're like, okay, we're fine.
My back hurts, my knee hurts.
So maybe
whatever.
that was it. Maybe it wasn't. We will never know.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's the thing of, you talk about all the different stages of grief, bargaining and denial and all this stuff. It's like, you just drive yourself crazy with that. What if this? What if that? And in the beginning, like I always talk about like the 2 years after for me was just hell. Like just my life was chaos, complete chaos. And so a lot of like thinking about those things like back then, but then over time I'm just sort of like, you know what? When I think about the situation, like all I can really say is like this shitty thing happened. It's fucking awful. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't have to explain it. Like, how did it happen? Why did it happen? Because that does not help me move forward.
No.
You know what I mean? Or if people say like, oh, well, now she's in a better place. Fuck you.
Yeah. Yeah.
This was a good place that she was at. There was nothing wrong with it. So
she
don't
had her
tell
kids,
me.
She had her husband.
Yeah. Like, oh, it happened, it's for a reason. This thing like that. What reason is that?
What am I supposed to learn from this?
Yes.
Oh, did you learn anything from this?
Right.
Fuck you.
But, but what I do with that though is I don't want somebody to say to me like, well, you can look at the bright side. Like, no, don't tell me that.
Yeah, easy
But
there.
for myself, what have I had to do? And yes, that is what I've had to do. I've been like, this horrible thing happened. I have essentially two choices. I can allow more horrible stuff to happen in my life, or I can learn from this and use this positively going forward. I feel like for me, it was one or the other.
And you weren't able to grieve alone.
Yeah.
You had two littles that.
Yeah, I had two littles that like didn't, they have a very vague memory of her, especially the younger one. The older one a little bit more, and he can remember some stuff from that day, So it's like sometimes I want to have a little bit more conversation with him, like, remember when mom, But then other times I'm glad that they don't have that sadness and that, know. So it's I don't know, it depends how you look at it, I guess.
Absolutely.
How heartbreaking that, like what a weird feeling of that they don't have those memories of who their mom was and who your wife was. That must be very painful. Where do you think you're at? Okay, so you're 10 years? 11 years.
Well, 11 and a half.
Okay, so 11 and a half years. Do you feel like you have completed all the stages of grief? Do you feel like you're truly, do you ever get to the other side of it?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just my opinion. But the way I look at it is that the grief never really goes away. You just learn to live with it. You incorporate it into your life, Things I do, not all the time. I mean, like, sometimes I feel stupid when I say these things because I'm like, I don't think of like that all the time. Like sometimes I'm thinking negatively and I'm not doing well, but where I try to be at is using that stuff and just being more aware and being more present, and that's not to say that I felt like I wasn't before, but like there's just a different reason for it now, and being a lot more intentional about certain things and stuff with my kids a lot, and that's something and this is why I don't think it'll ever go away. It's because every good positive thing with my kids, there's a little bit of like sadness for me too, because she's not here, and I do believe that she gets to watch us. I believe that she knows what's going on, but it's still not the same as having her here, and having her here for them,
Them having her.
Exactly, them having her, and so, it's like, they reach this thing and I'm like, oh, and then I'm thinking about it. But I share those with them and I try to, I feel like I do it all the time. Like if a story comes up about her that makes me think about it, I tell them like, oh my God, your mom, da, 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 so that they have some of that, like some narrative and some story. So when they're older, maybe they can't tell the story firsthand to their kids, but they can be like, well, hey, I didn't know grandma, but, we remember this story about her.
Yeah.
They learn through you. They have the relationship through you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it is, and it's different in the situation of, grief of a death versus grief of a divorce. It's like in a divorce situation, you don't bring that up a whole lot. Like, oh, your dad used to do this. Yeah,
different
oh,
things
your dad
it.
used, you're not teaching your kids about, their other parent through situations, through memories, through things like that, where, you are.
Right, true.
You are, because they didn't have it. They don't have the opportunity to go there for the other weekend, or like you had mentioned, your wife and her ex-husband, and how he's still in the picture. They, you don't have to, as a divorced co-parent, I don't have to sit there and tell my kids about their dad.
Right. And to give him that story because
And
the
give him
dad
that
is still there.
story.
He can do that.
Exactly.
He can talk about his childhood or whatever.
Exactly.
But I do think it's important to say like things, I feel like, unless I think you've experienced divorce, like you don't necessarily recognize it as grief. And I think it's very important for people to realize that there's different forms of grief, and divorce is absolutely a huge one because it's you're grieving the loss of a relationship. You're also grieving the loss of a life you had planned. Now the future is also different with it, and like ideals and stuff like that. And so one of the things I always say too with grief is like not to compare, because people always say things like, "Oh my God, I didn't have it that bad," or saying like my situation's like way worse. How can that person be upset? And like it's just like we don't know what the feelings and whatnot's going on in somebody else's body and mind and soul or whatever like that. So it's like I always just try like not to compare. Everybody just deal with it the way that you need to, and that we just need to recognize that, obviously death, of course, is the biggest one, but divorce, moving, loss of a job, just because like you have to start questioning certain identity things and stuff like that, and I remember early on, being very bitter about certain things. Like we used to go, my wife had a big family. She's from Laos. She was born there. They immigrated over. She was only like, I want to say 2 when she came over. So she did grow up in the States. But she had all these sisters, and we'd just go visit them and stuff. And she had some that were one that was in Portland. And I had gone down there. This was like maybe a few months before she passed away. We were visiting, and we were shopping in Oregon because there's like no sales tax, and so you get stuff cheaper, right?
Yeah.
And so we bought some stuff there, and then time went by. She had passed away. I'm back down there months after she'd passed away, visiting the sister, and she wanted to see her nephews, And I went back to that same store because I was like, I need to get some stuff. I think I was buying them. Actually, I know exactly what I was buying them. I was buying them some new iPads because we were traveling a lot. We'd fly from Seattle down to San Diego, where a lot of the sisters were, and just spend time with them so they could be close to their mom's family, right? And so I go back to the store. The same guy that happened to help us like 6 months before was there and remembered me.
Wow.
And he's like, "Oh, what's up, man?" And blah, blah, blah. He's just like, "Where's your wife at?" And I was just like, and he's just like, "Oh, sorry, man." He's like, "You guys get divorced, separate?" And I said, "I wish."
Yeah.
He kind of looked at me like, "What do you mean you wish?" I'm like, well, because the other alternative is she's dead, And sometimes I was very blunt and just throw it out because I just had no other way to say it, and it was obviously an awkward situation. But yeah, I wish that for a long time, be like, yes, it would have been like a messy thing. I would obviously like look at her differently if that would happen. Yeah. But at least then the kids would know their mom,
Yeah.
So
It so is. It is, there are no words to it.
I was going to say, you're speechless.
You're speechless with this story. And I think, as we talk about you being this unicorn and all of these things that you have gone through in your life, you have struggled a lot. You've struggled through in order to come out on the other side. And as you were sharing with Christina earlier, like it's not all rainbows and butterflies at the end of the road. No. There's still a lot of hurt, and there's still a lot of pain there, but there is that, that choice that you make. All right, do I stay or do I move on?
Yeah. Yeah. I remember
to have the courage.
Yeah. And people will say like, "Oh gosh, you're so brave, you're so strong." And one of the first things I say is like, but that's just not me. Like I was able to gain some courage by people helping me and listening to stories. Like I didn't just have it like naturally or something, right? And so the first year, just a lot of numbness, like not really knowing, a lot of distractions. I would distract myself with anything, alcohol, dated way too early. But it felt good because then I could talk to somebody else who didn't know her. And I found myself gravitating more a little bit towards strangers because they had no emotional involvement. So if I just talked about it, they just kind of listened, and then we just went on about something. Yeah. But if it was like our close friends, then we're both crying, and now it's a shitty situation. And I wanted to avoid the pain at all costs, And the only thing you do when you avoid the pain is that it just builds up and it gets worse later. At least it did for me, until it just absolutely blows up, And so things I did, which maybe seemed like the right decision at the time. And I'm not saying I don't even know if I would necessarily do it differently, but I know that they weren't healthy for me, is that I ended up quitting medicine. I was just like, I could not go back to work. Fuck this, no way. And I took a few months off, and then I remember So this would probably be like September. She passed away in March. So this is like September. And I had joined this new clinic with some residency friends of mine. Like, this would be a good environment for me to be in. I know everybody here, all this stuff. And one of the first visits we had, and I'm going through the list. It's like, had all these diagnoses on it. I'm like, oh, I'm sure these aren't active things anymore. Let's like clean your list up. And this woman in like her 30s. And the very first thing on the list says abnormal coagulation disorder. I'm like, that's really vague. Like, what's that? So I asked her, and she goes, no big deal. She says, I had a blood clot in my leg from my birth control pills. She goes, they found it. She goes, it's not a big deal.
You're like, no, it is a big deal.
And I mean, the way I'm pausing now is just sort of like, I didn't know, you know, and then now I'm crying.
Yeah.
I'm angry and I'm crying, and this patient's just like, I have a crazy doctor, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just like, I can't do this. Like, I can't take care of myself. I can't take care of my kids. I definitely can't take care of other people.
How can you be a healer when you're hurting?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, sometimes you can mask certain things or whatever, but this was not one of those to do that with, you know? And so I ended up quitting. I literally let my license expire. And I was just like,
wow,
fuck this. I'm done with all this. I'm not doing this anymore. You know, they're like, your license is about to expire. I'm like, whatever, let it go. You know, all these people were like, this is a really bad idea.
Yeah.
If you lose this, you want to make sure you maintain it. Like, it'll be really hard to get it back. Even back then, and I definitely do credit football to this in terms of like hard work and like determination and stuff. I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit, and I'm either never going to come back. And if I never come back, then that's the right decision, because I'll found something else. And if I come back, I'll just do it, whatever I need to do. It'll be fine, you know? And so I was out of medicine for a while. I moved to California to be around her family. In hindsight, that was a bad idea, because it just took responsibility away from me to allow my mental health to just get worse and worse.
So you really could just fall apart.
Completely fall apart, because somebody else was taking care of the kids, you know? And it was a good idea to be around them, but in hindsight, it just made it worse for me, you know? But yeah, once I finally was like starting to feel better and started to recover, and that's not through like internal strength, that was like through professional help, lots of professional help, you know, individual counseling, group counseling. That's what I tell my patients all the time. I really liked the grief group that I was in at one point. And I was with people who I would never have crossed paths before in their life. Like, one guy was a sheriff, younger girl, younger guy. People had different members who had like passed away traumatically. I remember the girl that we were with, like, she was grieving her father who had abused her. So it was like super confusing. Like, how does she navigate that? And so sitting with all of them was just sort of like, one, it's like, okay, I'm not the only person to have something really shitty happen to them. And we all know that, right? Everybody understands that people die every day. People lose loved ones every day, you know, but until I was sitting with somebody and really hearing what they'd gone through and how they handled it, or how they didn't handle it well, or whatever, like, then I could really relate. And it was like, okay, we can share this and be like, there's hope here, you know? So I found that like super valuable. And then through that process, one of the things, it wasn't a direct question, but the assignment kind of thing that we have was basically like, what do you want your legacy to be? And that, whether that was the right sentence, question, or maybe it was just the right time, I don't know, right?
Yeah.
It worked at that moment. That just really hit me, because I thought to myself, okay, this is why I know grief is still around, because when I get into it, you know. So for my boys, it's kind of that question, right?
Yeah.
They had a terrible beginning to life with their mom passing away. Their story could be that happened, and we also don't know our dad, because he either like drank himself to death, or crashed his car, or we're not sure where he is. You know, they could say that, or they could say, our mom died, our dad had a terrible time, but we don't remember it that well. And like, now things are good, and da-da-da-da-da. You know what I mean? It's just like, that was kind of like...
He grieved our mother.
Yeah, that was kind of like the choice. Which direction do I want to go? Like, what do I want my legacy to be?
That was your pivotal moment.
That was a huge pivotal moment, because it was like, okay, what do I need to change now going forward, you know? And then there was just all these mixed emotions, you know, like I mentioned, I dated too soon. Part of the dating too soon led me to who I'm married now. So it's like, I can't say that was necessarily a complete mistake, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, but then there's feelings of guilt around that and all sorts of stuff. So something I became really comfortable in that really helped me, helped me get back into medicine, it helped me move on in like a relationship or whatever, was that like, if I'm doing right by my late wife in terms of the boys, you know, if I'm raising them in the way that would like make her proud, it doesn't really matter what else I do. And that like sort of like solves a lot too, because it's like, okay, if this would be a proud thing, well then I must be living in the right way, you know? And again, like I said before, it's not like I do that perfectly. There's still mistakes I make now. Like there's still, we all do. I mean, like, I don't think nobody has a perfect marriage, a perfect relationship with parents, friends, or any of those things, right? The stuff that we constantly like work on. So it's not perfect, but it's like, you know, it's in progress and whatnot. So I feel like if I'm living that way for my boys, then like everything else should be fine.
So is that how, I mean, when we say like your social media presence is wild, I mean, and you've been working at it for a while, but like you've had huge success on social media. So I'm curious, one, how do you think social media platforms have changed the way that people grieve or express grief or take out their grief? And then on the flip side, being on the receiving end of that, just even you talking about trolls online, I blame social media for a lot of grief, you know, like just the existence of it, I think has created so much pain in our kids' lives. I'm just curious, like, so on one hand, it's so great, right? Because it provides this international platform to share stories, to heal, for all of that, for that community building. But then on the flip side, it's so ugly. Yeah.
It's an interesting thing, right? So when I first started doing the social media, it was purely just for medical stuff, you know, and in my mind, because I knew I was going to leave that place that you met me at, and I just thought to myself, like, maybe if I start doing this, and then like people watch, and then if I join like a private practice, then people will follow me and like help me build my patient panel. So I literally had like a few goals. Like when I thought about it, I was like, one, I wanted to just have like fun education. Like that's literally part of being a doctor. You know, I used to do teaching assistant kind of stuff, whatever. I like teaching, that's fun. And so I was like, okay, fun education. So if I meet goal number one with social media, that would be great. That's cool. Goal number two was like, well, if I build up a good following, this will help me build my private practice, you know, and that worked too. I mean, I have a couple people, even Phoenix and Casa Grande, who saw me on social media and they come down, you know, just to see me. And so that's kind of where I started with it. And then I don't remember when exactly I started posting a little bit more like grief kind of stuff. And part of that kind of goes back to the whole thing I was talking about with the grief groups and stuff, and just sharing your story and telling somebody to me is powerful and helpful, and just talking it out, you know what I mean? And so I just kind of started using that in a way of like, well, this is like, I'm journaling, but this is like new age journaling or whatever, you know? And it's kind of cool because, you know, your Facebook or whatever, that kind of stuff, and the memories come up and all that kind of stuff. So then you see that later. And there's things that I like posted like within the year or so after her passing that now I see those and I'm like, wow, that's a different person.
Wow. Yeah.
And I can share it with my boys too. Like it's just, you know, makes a little bit more sense to them as opposed to me showing like, here's my scribble in a journal you can't read, you know? And so I started posting some grief stuff, you know, and it felt good every time I did it. And then when people talk about it, and then we got a conversation going. So I was like, yeah, this is kind of cool. I'll keep doing this. And like, yeah, there's the whole thing of like, this is what your audience wants, you know? So like do more of it. And then after the big one I had, and that's what got me like the big following on TikTok. And then really interesting though, Instagram was like years later before that one like blew up.
Oh, it is just blown up. Why?
So I posted the video that I made in 2022, which was like on the fly. Like, I mean, I walked out of a patient exam room, sat down at my desk. Of course I knew what day it was. It's the day that she passed away, is the anniversary. But I looked at the time and I was like, this is when it all started, you know? And so I was like, I got to make a video right now. You know, it wasn't like planned to be something big. I was like, I need to record what I'm thinking and feeling right now. And so that's when I made that video. But I think it's a good place. And yes, there's a lot of negatives, you know? And so it allows other people to see that people can grieve and that they can move forward in life. I think that part's really good. But social media is also really good about making like everybody's life seem like it's perfect when it's not. Like it's just such bullshit. Like we look at these things and I worry about kids because you look at it and it's just like, well, that's the way it's supposed to be. Look how happy that couple is. And like that couple was happy for like the 30 minutes that it took to put the video together. And then they were arguing the rest of the time and it's not, you know. And so that's like, it's good because you can meet that community and then bad because some of those communities are fake and then the posts are fake, whatever. But I also think too, like, if we can get to a point of like realizing that we can understand that, people can have difficulties and tough times in their relationships and all this kind of stuff, but they can still have happy ones too. So it's not necessarily that happiness is fake. It's just that it's not there all the time.
Yeah.
There's other bad things, but that's just life,
Absolutely.
So, but the trolls, people ask me about that, and a lot of people say like, don't even respond to them. There's definitely a lot that I don't. There's some that I block, and there's some that I have to respond to, because the way I see it is that if somebody else in my situation comes across that and they're in a bad, like vulnerable place, and they see that troll's comment and they don't recognize it as a troll comment, and that affects them in some way, like I don't want that, especially if they're looking at my stuff.
That's a good point.
So if I figure
so
if I
true.
respond, then they can be like, oh, well, this is how he looks at it. And, okay, I'll ignore what the other person said and, like move on. So, but it's like, one of the things was the day that morning she passed away was we were texting, and she'd asked me if I wanted the special coffee thing that we liked, right? And I literally was like, had one in my hand. I was like, no, babe, I'm good. Like, I already got the coffee, but thank you. And then people were just like, you should have taken the coffee. She'd be alive.
Oh my gosh.
Like, are you fucking kidding me? And, so there's anger that comes from that.
Yeah.
And then people are like, don't even respond to that person. But I'm like, well, let's talk about the other side of this.
Yeah.
What if I had said yes? And while she was driving with
my
kids in the car, because she was losing oxygen, and that's what happened. So like, what if she just got disoriented so quick, she ran a red light and they got T-boned and they all died.
Yeah.
So, you can play that second guessing game all you want, but this is just what happened,
Yeah.
So, but yeah, you get comments like that, and it's just like, I think earlier on, like those probably would have like unraveled me, it would have been kind of hard.
Too much.
Oh,
and
100%.
and now sometimes it's like a challenge, like, okay, I
go.
see your messed up way of thinking. Let me correct it.
I see you, troll.
Yeah.
I'm going to crush your bridge.
Yeah.
I like that.
I see you, troll. Let's
Stop.
do this.
That's good.
Let's do this.
So one thing that I'm noticing, and I think that you said, because one of the questions I was going to ask you was, what sort of advice would you have for somebody who is right in the early stages, in the thick of it, versus 10 years post loss? And it seems like, I mean, it's stays with you and it's different. So
Yeah,
what do
it
you
just
say
changes,
to somebody who's right in the beginning?
I tell them to just be kind to themselves. You know what I mean? Like, treat yourself nice in a way, because there's so much of like that second guessing stuff and beating yourself up about it and this and that. Like, oh, I'm doing this part wrong. I'm doing this part wrong. And then it just snowballs, and then you're not doing anything, And I should, and I try to always speak in like more like the I form, because everybody's experience is different. I mean, I've seen some people who are just like, it is horrible. They're very internalized about all that. And then it's just, not saying they become like a workaholic, but that they just dive into that. And that works for them. That gives their mind a break from the pain and the trauma. And it's okay for them to go focus on work. And then later they can be back and figure out the other things. For me, that just wasn't happening. There wasn't like I'm just going to focus on work and this is all going to be okay. That for me was making it worse kind of thing. So I always just share my experience, and I tell people like the specific things that helped me. And then I talk generally just about like being kind to yourself, knowing that there's not a right or wrong way to do this. The whole stages of grief thing, they're changing that model a lot in terms of like, because you don't just go from one stage to the next, and then you're done. Earlier on, I felt like I would cycle through all 5 stages within like 1 hour. You know what I mean? And then as time went on, that cycling sort of like spread out, you know what I mean? So it was like, okay, it wasn't every hour, it was every day. And then it was week by week, month by month, just started stretching out. And so, I mean, I'm clearly in like no stage of denial now. I wouldn't really say that I wouldn't say I get angry anymore about it, just more sad. Sometimes I'll find myself being like a little bit jealous when I see things like when like the patient mentioning like, oh, my blood clot was no big deal. That makes me jealous. That I'm like, why couldn't that have been her story? You know what I mean? Or, I was like, I've diagnosed so many blood clots and caught people. And I'm like I'm like calling the patient at, 2:00 in the morning, be like, hey, that test came back. You might have this. You need to go in the ER. Like, why wasn't that the story, So I'll get some jealousy with those things, but those are like sort of fleeting moments at this point. Whereas early on, it was like super intense. So, and I like to share. I tell people to talk, or whether that's writing something down, posting something, talking to other people, tell the story, talk about the person, That's why it's so helpful for me to talk to my kids about it. It's therapeutic for me. It gives them, stories about her, and them, just for me knowing that they're hearing more also makes me feel better. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So that's the kind of stuff. And like I said, I always talk about the therapy and the grief, the group stuff to people. I share with my patients all the time, like when it's appropriate. And so a lot of them know my story, and, we have these visits that's just like, we're just chatting about some stories and that's about it. Be like, okay, we're not doing anything different today. See you next time,
That's amazing.
Wow.
Saren, we need to hit a quick break, but when we come back,
we're past that.
I know, just a quick one.
Okay.
We need to hit a quick break, but when we come back, I want you to tell us a little bit about you as an author, but I also want to, I want to hear about your new legacy. Where you're at today, and where you have taken your grief into this new journey.
Yeah, cool.
Ooh, Bridget's going deep.
I'm going deep.
I like it.
All right, Tony, take us away.
In Marana, community isn't just where we live, it's who we are. And at the heart of it all is the Marana Chamber of Commerce. We are building a thriving community through connected business leadership. We start the month bright and early with Marana Mornings, sparking real conversations and connections. We celebrate growing networks at our 4th Tuesday mixers, hosted in exciting spaces. We unite visionaries and leaders at Impact Marana, driving meaningful progress together. We look ahead with Marana Insights, hearing directly from regional voices about what's next for our town. And we serve, through the passion of our board of directors and ambassadors, creating a culture of belonging through service and leadership. Because of our members, we're not just doing more, we're becoming more. Together, we're shaping the future of Marana. We are the Marana Chamber of Commerce.
This clean, low-carb protein powder by Long Life Protein proves that less is more when it comes to nutrition. We've packed 24 grams of protein and only 3 grams of carbs into one serving of vanilla cream. Our non-GMO ingredient list is simple. Just whey protein concentrate and isolate, our digestive enzyme blend, and natural stevia. The protein builds lean muscle mass, while those enzymes ensure optimal nutrient absorption. Explore our other guilt-free protein flavors to fuel your gains. Add a scoop to water or milk when you're on the go, or mix it with yogurt for a satisfying late-night treat when cravings hit. With Long Life protein powders for men and women, you get pure protein without artificial flavors, colors, sweeteners, or fillers.
Order yours today at www.longlifeprotein.com or stop by Diet of Hope at 50 East Croydon Park Road. Diet of Hope Institute approved.
On Backseat Thriver, we dive into the messy, meaningful moments of life, especially parenting and mental health, because raising kids today takes more than love. It takes support, insight, and sometimes a little help. That's where LNC Therapy makes a difference. A compassionate mental health private practice proudly serving the Tucson community. They specialize in supporting children, teens, and young adults through challenges like depression, anxiety, ADHD, anger management, grief, and more. With a team of experienced, heart-forward therapists, LNC Therapy offers personalized care that meets your family where they are, whether that's in person or via telehealth. Because every young mind deserves a safe space to grow. LNC Therapy, supporting Tucson families one session at a time. Visit them at 7493 North Oracle Road, Suite 135, or reach out and visit them on their website at hello@lndtherapy.com. Now accepting new clients.
All right, thanks.
All right, we're back with our heavy-hitting questions.
Heavy-hitting questions. So tell us, author Marang, tell us a little bit about you as an author going into this journey.
Best-selling
author. My bad. Okay, call me out. Why don't you?
I got you.
Yeah, we can't hear his mic.
Oh.
Hello. There
All
we
right,
go.
now we got it.
They were tired of listening. No, I'm just kidding.
Tell us this journey, because you're a father, you're a doctor, now you're an author.
Yeah, and that's definitely something I had never planned on doing at all. And, to go back to the question about just how social media has been and that kind of stuff, like it came directly from that. So the video that I did that March 4th, 2022, that went crazy viral, that's what led to these book projects, led to some of the earlier podcasts I did. Trust me, I love doing this with you guys. But I did do a podcast with Michelle Williams of Destiny's Child.
Yeah, we saw that and we were like, whatever.
Whatever. Yeah.
I kind of feel special because he was also on Michelle Williams.
Well, that basically makes us famous then.
I know.
Right?
I think so. Because, you're going to get lumped together with here are the podcasts.
Well, wait a second. This might be crazy, but there are 3 of us. We could do a little Destiny's Child too.
we start singing.
Obviously, I'm Beyonce.
Love it.
Oh boy. Okay, yeah. So you're a big deal.
Yeah, so lots of people saw it, right? And so then I had a couple different people reach out to me, and they're like, "Hey, we saw your video. The first one, that book is a little bit more on fatherhood. So that was the one that was." I'm just blanking.
A Fatherless Curiosity.
Why was I blanking on my own book? A Fatherless Curiosity.
It was all AI.
Yeah,
No, I know.
It was AI generated, which really bugs me, by the way.
Yeah, that's a whole other.
That's another
whole other
podcast.
segment. Yeah. But A Fatherless Curiosity. So it's myself and 20 other men talking about growing up without our fathers, what that was like, and then how do we relate that as being fathers ourselves. So this book project was already going on, and they saw my story. They said, "Hey, maybe you would like to contribute to your story, a little bit different as far as the grief goes." But something that I found that really also happened after my wife passed away is, I think part of my spiraling down is because I had not grieved the fact of growing up without my father. Because of course, as a kid, I don't know that, right?
Yeah.
And to me, for the longest time, it was not a big deal. It was my mom was great. I had a grandpa, I had an uncle, I had a supportive family. I was on paper, you could be like, oh, this is bad. But no, it really wasn't. It was a good childhood and lots of loving family and stuff like that, but you still always miss that piece. And it wasn't until I started getting older and realizing what would I be like as a father? How is this guy not around? That I started to be a little bit angry about that and stuff. So I used to say, Visa dying created this hole in me. And what I realized is that her passing away revealed the hole that was already there. So her being there was just helping fill that space, that void, and I didn't really even know it. So then now I'm grieving her, and now I'm having to address some father issues and stuff like that. And so that's where that book came into play. And again, that was, in the way I looked at it, I was this would be a super therapeutic thing for me to do, write this story out. It's going to be something that I can look back on years and years to come and see how things have changed for me, what my perspective is like. I've already reread it a couple times, and I'm just oh, that's cool. That's how I was thinking then. And it's not really necessarily that different, but it still is just a tapping into that time period for me, So there was that one, and then another one, same situation. This woman had done a lot of book projects with widows, and it just, to her, seemed like there was just so much more out there on social media from the widow side, not so much from the widower side. And so that book is myself and a few other men talking about that experience. So,
which is so fascinating because Bridget and I yap a lot about gender and, injustices that we feel as women. And then you read that and we were both like, that is so true. I mean, that is certainly something where it's yeah, men, you're fine. Just move on. We don't really give space for that.
Well, and statistically, yes, men do remarry sooner. And so then people are like, you're writing a book about it's not just a myth. They're like, but you got remarried. And I'm I don't know what to tell you about that one. But, I think
do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But it's also just talking about what are the reasonings behind it, So somebody was just they see me post about, my new family. And, me and Michelle and I have been together for a while now. We've been married for over 6 years. And people are like, oh, we're so glad you found happiness again. And that's where I stop them, because that implies I'm happy because I'm in a new marriage. And that's not true. I'm happy, but it was me getting through or adapting to some of the grief, finding something within, finding some internal happiness that allows me to be available for another 100%. Relationship. And if I didn't do those things, in fact, I can tell this here, we did have a time period where we broke up. She was grieving a divorce. I was grieving my late wife. We hadn't dealt with some of our individual things, and so it was making it hard to come together, so we had to do some of that work still work in progress probably for both of us, you know.
And it probably always will be.
And always will be, you know. It's always there.
Yeah.
It's always there. And and your blended family.
And we're a blended family. Yeah, she had 2 kids. I had 2 kids. Then we got crazy and had another one.
Your kids are so
Started all
effing
over.
cute.
Yeah, I think,
Oh my gosh.
I'm biased, but I think they're cute too.
Oh my
yeah.
gosh.
Yeah.
I got a puppy.
Yeah,
So
you got a puppy instead of the kid?
getting the 5th
Yeah,
kid,
yeah.
we got a puppy, and I'm like, all right, that's
Yeah.
a 10-year commitment. We're
Right.
good.
We're in our lifespan right now of the oldest and the only girl. She's nothing but tennis every day. And then
The
4
only
boys.
girl.
Is she 16?
She's 16.
Okay.
Yeah. And yeah, she's the only girl except for mom and the dog.
Watch,
Yeah,
watch out
golden
for
doodle.
brothers. Watch out.
Yeah, but she's tough though. She doesn't really need to
heck
watch
yeah.
out for them. So, you know, she'd probably be the older sister that the younger brothers could be like, my older sisters are going to beat you up.
She's
And
you
gonna
know?
kick
that's
your
what we
ass.
say about our daughters. We're like, oh, I'm sorry, honey, you were raised with wolves.
Yeah.
But you were the toughest
The
girl.
toughness, yeah, super good. But
Yep.
yeah, she's crazy busy with that. And then the 4 boys going all the way down to the 5-year-old with some form of football going on. So never always busy.
It's wild that you have a 5-year-old, because one of my favorite memories of you from working together was it was right in the middle of COVID. And so nobody knows what they're doing. How are they coming to work? How are we schooling children? Blah, blah, blah. And we get a picture of him, and he's got your little towhead babe. I mean, he was like brand new baby, and he's holding the baby, and he's typing, you know, like seeing patients in the thick of it.
That's
And we
right.
sent that out, and we're like, parents, we see you.
Yeah.
Like, get, you know.
One of
So-
those telehealth visits I did from home, you know, he had one of those classic blowout diaper things, right? Where it's just like a diaper didn't hold anything in. And so like my leg is all warm. I look down, there's just, you know, just the
It's
baby
up your
poop.
shoulder,
Yeah, the
his
baby poop, my
shoulder.
shirt, my pants is on the floor. I'm on video with a patient. And I was just like, I'm going to have to call you back, you know? And the best part about it too is that like I'd done that through so many years. I mean, there was a concentrated period right for COVID, but you know, we've done more telehealth, you know, and even times like maybe in the 2 years ago, like it was at home or something, and like you know somebody saw him and they're like, oh, you know, and they're seeing me in person. They've watched him growing up just from me
Yeah.
like holding him there, you know. I used to give him a bottle while I was talking to, you know, so.
It's such a cool representation. And we're running out of time. But, you know, when you're talking about a fatherless curiosity, I'm so curious. How you growing up without a father, do you have that one thing that you're like, oh my gosh, I knew I would never do X, Y, and Z with my boys? Or how has that changed the way that, you know, you're in the middle of raising 5 kids?
I mean, the biggest thing for me in this, I realized this before my wife passed away, but then it became even stronger afterwards, is presence. You know, and because that's the biggest thing for my dad is like he was just absent. Nothing bad that he did other than just not being there. Whole long story as to why and cultural differences and whatnot. But that was the biggest thing. So for me, it's just like it's always being around, being there, doing that stuff. You know, we whine and we complain like, I don't want to pick them up. I don't want to take them here. I don't want to do that, you know. But I do realize it's going to be a short period of time and they're going to be gone. And I'm not going to be an empty nester. I'm going to be a bird launcher.
There you go.
Bridget, we gotta
Zern.
trademark
We're
this.
trademarking this.
You did
Bird
it. Good
launchers.
job.
Yep.
Bird launcher. Okay, so I think that we can put you on the spot because I literally have all of these
I
notes.
see your
I
notes
think I've
there.
gotten through this much. You have to come back on.
You could probably
Awkward
talk.
silence.
You probably talk me into it.
All right.
Probably.
Yeah,
Wow.
well, I'm saying that joke, of course.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
happy to
That's
do
so
it.
mean. He didn't
Yeah.
like it as much
Most
as
of
we
our
did.
guests
Actually, I'm kind of laughing because I know my wife is going to listen to this later, and she'll be like, "There's no way he's not going to go back on there. He loves to talk."
Perfect. and you have such a gorgeous family. Like your wife is banging. Your kids are so cute.
Oh, she's going to like that one.
Yeah.
Banging.
Oh,
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
So, like, you know, you can bring her on too. But we have a million other things we want to, like, blended families. That is a huge one. I want to talk more about your books. I have more questions on grief. I mean, I didn't get enough.
I love
Let's
I
plan
love
it.
all this.
Let's plan it.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
And maybe Christina might show you her rash next time. I don't know. We'll talk about her bowel movement.
Hey, this is like a non-working day. Okay, I'm trying to.
Come on, you walked in with doctor on
Yeah.
your shirt.
That's
I mean,
true,
you
I
know
did,
I'm going
I
to
did.
ask you about
You know, it's
my
funny, too.
vascular issues.
Quick story before we wrap up. We're at the practice field with the boys or whatever, and I was wearing this shirt that says, you know, a wise doctor once wrote, and then it's just like scribbles. Handwriting's terrible.
Yep.
And this one coach was just like, oh, it's a funny shirt, man. I was like, oh, cool, thank you. He's like, so what do you actually do? And I was like, I'm a doctor.
No, for real.
He's like, ha ha. I'm like, yeah, I know. Yeah.
Well, even before you walked in here, we're just like, oh, yeah, this is our doc. We're having him on for the show. What are you, a PhD or an MD? What are you? What kind of doctor are you?
Yeah, we can definitely get into social media and the quote unquote doctors
Yes.
on there. Yeah.
See, that will be
For
so
sure.
fun.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank you
well,
guys for having me on.
This was a
appreciate
fun
it.
one. Thank
Yeah.
you. And congrats on all the amazing things that you're doing. Are you seeing new patients at your practice? We can.
No.
Okay, so you are maxed. Okay, cool.
I am beyond maxed. Like,
awesome.
it's,
Well,
a, it's a
that's
good
everywhere,
problem.
right?
Yeah,
Well,
it's
he's
everywhere.
got people from Phoenix coming down
I
to see
know.
you.
I mean, somebody tried to schedule their annual visit the other day, and it was like 7 months out. And the other people will ask me like, "Hey, can we be a new patient?" I'm like, I feel bad if I say yes, but I can't see you
You're
in
like,
6 months.
sure,
Like,
but-
how is that helpful?
I was gonna ask you
Yeah.
offline, but
well, I
no.
was going to ask too. I'm in the market. So,
I know.
Yeah.
We'll
see.
have to. Yeah.
You guys might have special privileges.
Oh, sweet. I was going to say, I can't handle public rejection, so we'll talk about it later.
So I'm gonna call your office and speak to your practice manager.
He knows me.
There's two things. I want to be a patient, and I need one of those shirts. So, all right, that's what we're
Bridget,
doing.
she's got an agenda.
I've got an agenda.
All right. Well, check out Dr. Morong's social media platforms. We're going to tag all of those. Get his books. These are awesome books available on Amazon, and we will post all the info. So thank you so much
Yeah. Thank you guys.
for
This was
being
fun.
here. This was great.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.